Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Daily Debate. My name is tonight we'll be focusing on the COP27 regarding the climate change and the sustainable development, the future of sustainable development here in Egypt. The COP27, which will be held regarding the climate change and the repercussions of climate change and the efforts of Egypt, the Middle East, Africa and the world regarding climate change. The summit, which will be taking place in November in the newly refurbished green city of Sharm el-Sheikh, the city of peace, will be shedding more light on the efforts of the political leadership and President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, as well as His Excellency's participation in the COP26 in Glasgow regarding climate change, and the efforts of Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry concerning the upcoming summit that will be taking place, the COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt. To be having more information and more details regarding this COP27 summit, I'm honored to be having with me over the daily debate for tonight Dr. Emad Adly, the chairperson of the Egyptian Sustainable Development Forum. Thank you very much for being with us tonight, and happy Ramadan.
Happy Ramadan to all of you.
First of all, being the chairperson of the Egyptian Sustainable Development Forum, what do we need to know about the term itself, sustainable development? Because we have been listening a lot and hearing a lot about the term sustainable development. What does it mean? What are the efforts of the political leadership to be having more awareness for the Egyptians about it?
The very simple answer to your point that the difference between what we used to call comprehensive development or collective development or whatever.
Yes.
In the past, we were always thinking about economic development only.
Yes.
So the countries in the world, they were always looking at what the percentage that they could achieve to make this development happening. But people working in the field of environment, they had a different idea, because you cannot have development that will remain with the same growth rate.
Yes.
Without having all the elements of supporting the enabling environment to make this economy sustainable. And the whole idea of sustainable development started in the 80s, last century.
Yes.
And it was, at the end, it was after long debates like our daily debate here, but it took many years.
Yes.
Until the world agreed on the definition of sustainable development. It's in a very simple way, a development that can meet the needs, dreams of the existing generations without compromising the same dreams and the needs for the coming generations. So if I have development strategies or plans that will be later will affect negatively on the next generation, this is not sustainable at all.
We need to change it.
We have to, to adapt it to become. So, and then the idea became more clearly that economic development with environmental conservation and environmental protection, plus social integration, social development integration, the three together, if we can make it in a very simple way, the combo together, the three together, they make the sustainable development. So the sustainable development is three components: economic, social, and environmental. And if you take only one or two of them and you ignore the third one, it is not any more sustainable. You have to bring the three together. And this is the whole idea of the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals that were adopted by the UN in 2015, 7 years ago. This is the whole idea behind the strategies that started to be designed in the different countries. Egypt is one of them, and talking about strategies, the vision for 2030 and the strategies at the national level of sustainable development, they all try to bring the philosophy of sustainable development into the national strategies, into the national plans, into the local implementation.
So the world started talking about the sustainable development in the early 80s, and we are focusing on it now for the future generation. So what are the efforts of Egypt nowadays to be catching up with what happened across the world in the 1980s, the 90s, and at the beginning of the new millennium?
As I said, to get into this new paradigm, first of all, you have to have a strategy. You have to discuss internally. You cannot bring just the ideas from outside and say, okay, I'm going to take it and implement it at the national level. No, you have to think about it at the national level, and then you have your own strategy. This does not mean that all the strategies in all countries will be the same. Each country has its own strategy based on what resources they have, what strengths they have, what weaknesses they have, and so on. And the second part is very important. You have to have a strong legislative system that will protect your strategy to achieve and help and assist the strategy to be achieved. So if you have a strategy, for example, on the solid waste management thing in Egypt, without having a law for this, the solid waste, you cannot really implement your ideas in the strategy. The same with the climate change. You have to have a national strategy of the climate change, and you have also to put legislations to support your strategy on that. So first of all, you do the strategy, and then you make the legislations. But at the same time, you have to go on two parallel things together. You have to raise the awareness of people to understand what we are talking about, because without the involvement and the full participation of people, you cannot make any difference. You cannot make any change. And the second thing, you have to develop the capacities of the different actors, because with any new strategy, even if we are talking about sports, when you get a new coach, the new coach has to train
Takes time.
the players on what new strategy.
New ideas, yes.
His ideas and his strategy. So the same. If you have a strategy, you need to have the awareness for people to understand and also to be able to make the law enforced. And then the second, to develop the capacities of the people working in the different fields to be able to achieve and implement your strategy. And the last thing, which is, unfortunately, it's always the best and the most important element, is financial resources. You have to put financial resources. Because if you have a strategy and you have awareness and you have legislations and you have developed capacities developed, if you don't have resources to implement your ideas and to make the change and to provide the alternatives and do all this, it will be only ink on paper. So all these things together, they make the sustainable. And then back to your question, Egypt has gone through all these levels of implementation. We have the strategy. We are working on legislations and coming, and even the ones that are there still needs to be adapted for the new strategies. The awareness is, my organization, for example, the Egyptian Sustainable Development Forum, is taking this as one of the objectives of the organization to raise the awareness. Basically, we focus on universities, university students, and also on local authorities and the different governorates, and then to develop the capacity. And this is what also we are trying to do. But this has to be a joint process by all different actors, not only the civil society, but also government and private sector as well.
If we can focus first of all on the awareness, because we have 110 million Egyptians living here in the country. How would you see the rate of increasing awareness about climate change, about the importance of the upcoming generations having the same opportunities like we had or the past generations had, and the importance of fighting climate change, because we have the COP27 here in Sharm el-Sheikh, not just the voice of Egypt, but as a voice for Africa, for the Middle East and the Arab world as well?
The awareness for the climate change is still not, I would say, it's not yet at the level of the awareness on environmental issues, but they are very much, related to each other. But let's make it very simple for the people watching us now. Climate change is basically the result of the increased emissions of the carbon dioxide and all what we call them the greenhouse gases. So basically, everyone is talking about the mitigation that we minimize the use of the emissions. Country like Egypt or a continent like Africa or the Middle East, we are all together. We don't form, the emissions coming from the whole region is less than 20% of what comes out from only the United States. So our share of the emissions is very low. But we have two things to do. We are going to gain two things, or to win two things, if we do things and we do efforts on the mitigation. Number one, the pollution gets less, so it's better for our health. It's good for our economy, because when you save energy, you are also reducing your bill, your monthly bill. The same for water conservation, the same for all the different consumption patterns. Every time you mitigate, you minimize your consumption, and you use all the resources in a very wise way, it is very good for your economy and it's very good for your health. So the gains behind the mitigation is more on at the national level, at the individual level. Still, it has an ethical component, the one that we are sharing the globe in minimizing and reducing the emissions. But the most important part of the climate change is the adaptation. Because what happens now, that we are around 1 centigrade Celsius above the average that we are talking about.
The target that we want, yes.
And the target is not to reach the 1.5, or the maximum to reach 1.5. So can you imagine that with 1 degree now, raised in the planet temperature,
yes,
we are having all these disasters. Can you imagine when it becomes 1.5? And even 1.5 is a difficult target to achieve, because the overpopulation happening, and also the increase in industrialization, and the pattern is showing that it's going beyond the 1.5. But all the world is trying to keep it at the 1.5. Even if we reach 1.5, still the disasters will be 1.5 times what we are having now. So this means that there is no way that we live on this planet without adopting very clear adaptation strategy. Adaptation to be able, when the sea level rise, we are adapted for this. When there is a drought, we are adapted for this. When there is flood, we are adapted for this. When there are heat waves, we are adapted. When there is cold waves, we are adapted to this. So this adaptation needs, again, what I talked about. It needs awareness raising, because the adaptation at the end, the target of the adaptation is to keep your community resilient. You don't want people to leave their place where they live. You don't want them to lose their jobs, yes, in agriculture or in fishing or whatever. So to make this happening, you have to support them with adaptation mechanism. And all this adaptation mechanism needs, again, resources, need technology, needs capacity, needs resources. And this is why the COP27 is becoming a tremendous important event for Egypt, for Africa, because it's a turning point especially for the issue of climate finance. We are talking about the $100 billion a year to support the struggle against climate change, especially in Africa. So we want to see this adopted as a result, as a decision by the leaders in Sharm el-Sheikh. And we want also the issue of loss and damages due to the climate change as an effect of the climate change to be also taken seriously by the industrialized rich countries. And we want the technology transfer to happen, and the knowledge to be transferred also to help our communities and our countries to be adapted and to be resilient.
Yes, Dr. Emad, as the chairperson of the Egyptian Sustainable Development Forum, when was it founded? And what were the main principles that they were founded on, the forum was founded on? Because we have two other important factors, the capacity building of people who work in this field to be letting more people know, getting more awareness regarding the climate change, the repercussions of the climate change and the importance of sustainable development. And as you mentioned, most importantly, we need money, we need more funding for the future. So the forum itself, what is the importance of having this forum? When was it founded? What were the principles back then and the future of it?
This is one of the things that I feel very proud about it, and I think all my distinguished members of the forum are very proud of it. The forum was established in 2012. This was 3 years before the United Nations adopted the SDGs, which means that we are in Egypt with this forum. We were 3 years ahead of the UN process.
Yes.
We are a think tank of scientists, of experts, of pioneers, of very experienced people in the different sectors.
Yes.
In energy, in agriculture, in climate change, in environment, in biodiversity, and even in economy, and on cross-cutting issues like the gender issue, like the youth issue, like education, and so on. So the whole idea, the whole philosophy of having the forum in Egypt was to have this think tank as a support process for the Egyptian strategies on the road to achieve sustainable development. So we were very happy to be able to provide the support on all the mega projects in Egypt, like the 1.5 million fardans. We had many workshops and conferences to discuss how the 1.5 million fardan could be part of the sustainable development process in Egypt, because you could have any mega project and it becomes like a burden on sustainable development. But you can have the same project, but it becomes very consistent and goes with the ideas of sustainable development. The same goes with the new capital, العاصمة الإدارية الجديدة, the new administrative city or capital. The same goes with the Suez Canal development, the Suez Canal zone development project. All these mega projects were part of the discussions of the ESDF, the Egyptian Sustainable Development Forum, but we are also focusing on what we call it localizing the sustainable development goals at the local level. So we are very much helping governorates in understanding what do we mean by SDGs, because at the end of the day, you need everyone working at any place, in any governorate, north, south, east, west, whatever, to understand how we can make this link between the social, economic, and environmental impacts of any development they are doing at the local level. And to do this also, we support a lot of civil society organizations, and also we work closely with the universities and with the Ministry of Education with a number of schools. We have some activities in some schools to integrate what we call it education for sustainable development, ESD. The education for sustainable development is a process through which the school becomes like a focus or an area that irradiates the issues of sustainable development in the whole, not only inside the school, but also in the surrounding neighborhood of the school. So we are trying to do this, and as I said, at the local level, at the national level, with the mega projects, with the schools and universities, and because with the youth and women, you can really make a change for this country. And hopefully the same we are doing for the COP27. We are focusing very much now with our platforms and the different governorates. We have now at least 20 platforms in 20 governorates out of the 27, hoping that very near we have the 27 platforms. In each platform, we have this dialogue between the stakeholders, the governorates, civil society, universities, National Council for Women, media. Together, they discuss how they could have local strategies, local action plans to prepare their governorate for the COP27 under the slogan of بلدنا تستضيف قمة المناخ 27, our country hosts the coming climate change COP27. So we are using the COP27 as an incentive for the people to understand why we are having the COP and why the COP is important for Egyptians, and how each individual and institution becomes actively participating, actively involved in the process of combating the climate change.
Yes, Dr. Emad Adly, the chairperson of the Egyptian Sustainable Development Forum. Thank you very much for being with us tonight on the Daily Debate, and the Happy Ramadan once again.
Thank you. Ramadan Kareem.
We will be heading to the preparations of Egypt for the COP27 according to the directives of the political leadership and headed by His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. We have more details in the upcoming report.
President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi held a meeting with Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli and a number of ministers. Minister of Electricity and Renewable Energy, Mohammed Shakir Al-Marqabi, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Sameh Shukri, Minister of Petroleum and Mineral Resources, Tariq Al-Mulla, Minister of Tourism and Antiquities, Khalid Al-Anani, Minister of Planning and Economic Development, Hala Saeed, Minister of International Cooperation, Rani Al-Mashat, Minister of Finance, Mohammed Mait, Minister of Environment, Yasmin Fuad, Minister of Communications and Information Technology, Amr Talat, Minister of Housing, Utilities and Urban Communities, Asim Al-Gazzar, Minister of Civil Aviation, Mohammed Manar, as well as the Governor of South Sinai, Major General Khalid Fouda. Presidential spokesman Ambassador Bassam Radi stated that the meeting followed up on the work of the Higher Ministerial Committee to prepare for Egypt's hosting of the UN Climate Change Conference 2022 UNFCCC COP27 this November in Sharm el-Sheikh. The President gave directives to provide all the necessary financial resources for the full readiness of Sharm el-Sheikh to host the conference, and for various concerned authorities to continue to enhance their efforts to organize this global event in a way that benefits Egypt's regional and international status. This includes the level of organization and technical aspects, as well as demonstrating Egypt's significant efforts to achieve green transformation, protect the environment, and increase the use of clean energy through various national projects related to natural gas, electricity, solar energy, wind energy, green hydrogen, and environmental friendly transportation. The Ministerial Committee presented the most important items of the upcoming summit and the desired outcomes, as well as the ongoing coordination with the current British President of the conference. This is in addition to Egypt's vision concerning the implementation of the summit pledges and advancing national and African concerns pertinent to climate change issues at the most important specialized UN forum, especially with regard to adaptation and mitigation of the effects of this phenomenon. The meeting also touched on developments of coordination with the United Nations Secretariat regarding procedures and logistical and organizational details to provide various services to the participants, particularly transportation, accommodation, communications, and health services. This is in addition to capitalizing on the conference to promote for tourism and economic opportunities in Egypt. The meeting also reviewed the technical aspect concerning international partners and mobilizing funding, in addition to the financial aspect and rough calculation of the budget and adequate staff training to run the conference. Ongoing preparations in Sharm el-Sheikh were also discussed, including security aspects, raising the efficiency of services, and determining a unified visual identity in order for Sharm el-Sheikh to be Egypt's mirror to the world.
Welcome back. You're still watching the Daily Debate, and I'm honored to be having with me over the phone to be focusing on climate change and the repercussions of climate change and the importance of sustainable development for the future generations, not just in Egypt, but for the Arab world, for Africa, for the world as well. And the COP27, which will be held here in Egypt in the month of November in Sharm el-Sheikh. I'm honored to be having with me over the phone Dr. Emad Adly, the international expert of environment. Thank you very much for being with us tonight on the Daily Debate. Dr.
Hello?
Magdi, yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes. First of all, happy Ramadan. Thank you very much for being with us. The COP27, which will be held here in Egypt in the month of November, what is the importance of holding such an international summit regarding climate change and sustainable development in Egypt for the first time, in Africa for the first time, and in the Arab world for the first time as well?
It's actually, for Egypt, it is not the first time to organize an international meeting, because if you remember that
Yes.
President Fattah al-Sisi already invited the General Assembly of the Agreement of the Biodiversity in Sharm el-Sheikh, which is actually including the same number or similar number of attendees, either from the experts or representatives of the government or representatives of the international agencies, in addition to the mega private companies and also the civil society. So it was a very successful story, and in my point of view, this is the main rationale that the decision of the General Assembly that attending the Biodiversity One in Sharm el-Sheikh, assuring the selection of Egypt to be the hosting country for the climate change agreement, for the COP27. The other point that it will be held in Sharm el-Sheikh. Sharm el-Sheikh is an international protected area, as approved by UNESCO, and President Fattah al-Sisi attending and visited UNESCO while he was in France conference, and assuring the accreditation of the UNESCO for Sharm el-Sheikh as one of the most important biodiversity rare ecosystems. It's very rare all over the Earth sphere, and actually it's one of the most also rare ecosystems of biodiversity, in addition to the bifurcation between the two gulfs, the Aqaba Gulf and Suez Gulf, where we call it is Ras Muhammad, and we believe that it is the same area that Prophet Musa meeting with the Al-Khidr in Ras Muhammad, which being another historic additions, memorial for this area. The other point that the experts and the scientific department in Egypt is already correlated to the COP27, either in the research is being done by more than 12 universities in Egypt about the 6 elements of climate change affection upon the biodiversity. The second one is related to the energy. The third one is the industry. The fourth one is the transportation. And then the fifth one is the community and the housing. And the final one is the tourism. The 6 sectors are actually affecting the increase of the GHG, the greenhouse gases, from the Egyptian activities, and the Arab, and also including the Africa one, has 4% total GHG, total greenhouse gas emissions of Africa content, and the Arab world, including Egypt, is only 4%. Comparison to the European one, up to 40%.
Yes.
The United States are also another 35%, and the India and China. So the mega 20 countries, the industrial 20 countries are responsible for the increasing of the heat of the surface of the earth, which I'm assuring in every interview that we are not talking about the weather. we are talking about the climate.
Yes.
There's a big difference between the measurement of the weather according to the daily temperature and humidity and so on. This is a completely different thing. We, as experts in the climate change, are researching up to the 100 years at least to make the formula how much you are expecting the increase of the temperature of the surface of the earth every 25 years, every 10 years. So the simple one is every 10 years we are trying to measure it, but the total measurement that we are looking for is the 100 year. We call it the century. So the 100 year is the indicator of if there is an impact on the Earth's surface or not. So we have now a solid indication that there will be a very serious problems in all systems, ecosystems, biodiversity, nutrition, food security, health of the people, biodiversity of the marine, biodiversity of the oceans, biodiversity of the mountains. All of those ecosystems will apparently being damaged by the increased temperature and also by the drought and desertification and the reduction of the moisture for each leaflet of the plants. It will be a very dangerous impact on the nutritional status of all the population of the earth. So we are crying now, not we are giving attention. We are crying as experts for the decision makers all over the world. Stop it the fuel system, stop it the coal system, stop it all the GHG emission systems, either it's coal, either it is petroleum, it's crude oil. We are shifting for the solar energy, shifting for the hydrological energy resources, shifting for the wind energy resources. I'm referring here to the Aswan that we have there, the big solar station all over the world in Aswan, which is a module of a clean technology. It's giving you the supply of the technology, of this energy that you are needing for the industry, but we still, as experts, considering that heavy industries cannot use the solar energy. So we still will, all the states all over the world will still using the crude oil and the coal for the temperature required up to more than 700 degrees centigrade in the oven. This 700 degrees centigrade for the steel industry, for the cement industry, for the fertilizers industry, for the petrochemical industries, maybe 40% of all the kinds of industry and energy generation still depending on crude oil and coal, which cannot be avoided maybe in more than 50 years ago. 50 years next, which is actually another technical problem. It is out of the decision makers. Nevertheless, that the issue of the agreement of the total states, mega countries like the United States, China, Russia, and India also, they are not up till now serious in their commitment to reduce their GHG. Maybe China can change its position to strongly affirm the commitment to reduce a reasonable percentage, maybe 10 or 15 or 20% in every 10 years, which is the most hope of all the experts that China can give the atmosphere, the atmosphere of the earth. It is not the atmosphere of one country. There is no borders between the countries. There is no borders in the sky. So the atmosphere is one atmosphere. We are here in Egypt affected by the acid rains coming from the pollutants of the air of the country. So when some farmers are suffering from destroying their livelihoods.
Dr. Magdi, so you think that what happens in Africa affects Asia, Europe, and the Americas, and vice versa, regarding the climate change for the future and the sustainable development as well for the future generations? Dr. Magdi Allem, the international expert of environment, thank you very much for being with us today on the Daily Debate. And we will be heading to the other report of the Daily Debate for tonight, which is turning Sharm el-Sheikh into a green city, depending on the green energy and, of course, benefiting from the possible green economy outlets in the near future. And more specifically, in the month of November, which will be hosting the COP27 summit in Egypt and in Sharm el-Sheikh. The details are in the upcoming report.
Since Egypt was announced to be the host of the upcoming United Nations Conference of Parties on Climate Change COP27, all state agencies have been working to prepare for the global event, and steps were taken to declare the hosting city, Sharm el-Sheikh, a green city. The plan to declare Sharm el-Sheikh a green city included a main goal, which is the use of clean energy and encouragement of environmental investment in the areas of preserving the environment and working on the establishment of a number of projects related to new energy, which was a priority. All cars and buses in Sharm el-Sheikh will operate by electricity, and more than 100 charging points will be established for these vehicles, according to what the Ministry of Environment announced. Also, all hotels in Sharm el-Sheikh will also be powered by solar energy through the spaces inside each hotel separately, using the net metering system, whereby the solar energy capacities will be increased with this system to reach 1,000 megawatts instead of 300 megawatts. For its part, the United Nations Development Programme announced, in cooperation with the Industrial Modernization Center, that it will provide technical and financial support for the establishment of small solar plants in Sharm el-Sheikh. In the same direction, lands will be granted to companies wishing to implement these clean energy projects under the use-fruct system for a period of 25 years, according to an announcement by the Ministry of Housing. The Ministry of Electricity also announced that solar projects up to 1 megawatt would be exempted from the integration fees on the electrical grid. Set to be held in November, the upcoming climate summit in Sharm el-Sheikh will include a presentation of renewable energy projects on par with Egypt, implemented by the private sector, with capacities exceeding 2,500 megawatts. Within the direction of clean energy, the first project to produce green ammonia will be commissioned at the end of next October, with a capacity of 100 megawatts. The state is currently working on resolving offers for investment in renewable energy production projects by international companies at the end of next July, according to what the Ministry of Electricity announced. In order to complete the picture in encouraging the use and launching of new energy projects, the executive regulations of the Waste Regulation Law were approved, and projects to produce energy from waste with a capacity of 300 megawatts were approved.
And this brings us to the end of the Daily Debate for tonight, which focused on the COP27, the climate change conference that will be held here in Egypt in the city of Sharm el-Sheikh under the political leadership and the directives by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, and at the same time turning Sharm el-Sheikh itself, the city of peace, into a green city depending on green energy and benefiting from the green economy procedures. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.